Hi, I'm Aaron McManus, and I'm here with my dad, Erwin Raphael McManus. You were listening to the Battle Ready podcast, and we are in Mexico City. We have a special guest.
We are here with
Emerson Nowotny.
Come on.
Let's go. Our good friend. You've been out here for 4 years now?
3 years.
3 years.
Yeah.
It feels, COVID just felt like twice as long. And we actually haven't been back to the city in a year. So it's kind of feels like we're revisiting a long lost home.
Yes.
And we're in the middle of the new home for Mosaic Mexico.
Yes.
All right, give us a quick rundown what we got around us here.
Hey, so thank you for this privilege and honor to be on Battle Ready. I'm a huge fan, as you can tell. I'm geared up.
Right before he came in, he's like, is this too much? Is this too much? I'm so sorry.
It's just enough. It's just enough.
I wasn't sure if we were going to shoot. I'm sorry.
He's got our Battle Ready jockey shorts on underneath.
Yes.
So this is our new home, and it's so exciting to have you guys see it in person. I know we FaceTimed and you guys saw it through the phone, but now seeing it in person, I'm so excited, and it's so meaningful. So this is the space. Is going to be multi-purpose. You know, our offices. We've been working out of my home, and now that we have twins, my wife has said,
"You gotta go.
Time to go."
You just had twin boys during COVID.
Yes, sir.
And you already have a boy, Lincoln.
And they're 3 months old.
3 months old.
That is crazy.
London
and Luca.
London and Luca.
And then
Lincoln, London, and Luca.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Three L's.
Good. That's so good. Okay, so what Emerson was saying is that we are now in like the new office / it'll be church for a while. You guys have been shut down as long as we have.
Yes, sir.
We pretty much all shut down last March, I guess.
Yeah.
So it's over a year now. It's
Yeah.
absolutely insane.
Insane.
And now you're gutting this building and creating a new spot, and it's like right in the heart of Roma. It's
Yeah.
pretty
So
amazing.
you moved from basically Condesa
Yeah.
to Roma.
Polanco. Yeah, Polanco.
Polanco, yeah.
Yeah.
And so for everyone who doesn't know Mexico City, which I'm assuming is most of our listeners,
Yes, sir.
give us a contrast of like the areas around here, like Polanco, Condesa, Juarez, Roma.
Yeah, so, we initiated from scratch in our home.
And that's our session today, starting from scratch.
Starting from scratch, yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, okay.
And, I can still remember the words you told me, hey, you're going to start at home. The story of Mosaic is your home. And once you get to 300, call me. So we called you, and we started on Tuesday nights, just doing Bible studies, and it grew and it grew. And I think I thought the core values like 1,000 times. We just teaching the core values to our people, and then we launched in Polanco with both of you.
Right.
We launched in Polanco, and we were in Antara until COVID hit, and we had to shut down and just went to homes, and we've been in homes, and now we've been, we talked about this building and what you guys thought, and we were inspired by Pasadena, inspired by Mosaic Hollywood, all the remodel that you guys are doing.
And you guys did Venice together.
We did Venice together, yeah, from scratch.
You left me. You left me. We were in Venice together, and neither one of us went to the beach ever. So we were laughing there. Like, you put us in Venice to start Venice, and we were just. And then you told me pretty early on that you were going to go to Mexico City.
Yeah,
which was awesome.
And we started in Mexico City together.
I remember we did the first interest night.
You came every single time.
It was crazy.
So you guys have been starting from scratch for a while, Venice Beach.
For 5 years now.
In Mexico City.
4 years now. It's just pretty crazy.
Now the first event that I was a part of before we started the church was in the Shakespeare Theater.
Yes, sir.
And now what city is that in?
That's in Condesa.
Condesa, okay.
Yeah.
So I remember we started kind of in Condesa.
Yeah.
And it was cool because that was kind of an open event to artists and creatives.
Yeah.
It wasn't a church event.
No.
It was an event we built around the artist and soul. And we just did a kind of an invite across the country for anyone who saw themselves as an artist, a creative, and maybe they felt they were outside of the church. And we had a packed little theater.
Yeah.
It was a beautiful thing. And it was almost like it was a window where we could see the things to come.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to ask you guys some questions since you both actually started from scratch together.
Sure.
And there's probably people listening, and not all of them would be like pastors or church starters, but maybe some of them are entrepreneurs that they want to start. a business, or maybe they're in the early stages of trying to make a dream a reality. And so let's talk about before you know it's going to work, you know, and then we'll talk about what's happening here. But even looking back on Venice Beach and looking here, what would you say? Like, what's the starting point? You come to Mexico City, you and Christina and Lincoln.
Yeah.
And so what's the first thing you started doing?
Well, I think the first thing that I've learned is one, to listen to you, you know, just the importance of having a leader, a pastor, someone over my life, the necessity of that. I know that I wanted to come here a long time ago, and it just wasn't the time. Mm-hmm. And even though in my young heart, I was ready, you know, but I really wasn't. And I think Venice was a huge eye-opening, and helped me see to start something with you, Aaron, together, and you know, build it to 500, and you know, it got crazy. Went to Mosaic Venice, Santa Monica, you know, it was like just everywhere.
The name was crazy. Everything was crazy.
And it was just so much
called Mosaic Venice in Santa Monica for a while.
Venice in Santa Monica. And it was on Wednesday nights.
Yeah, so. Even just the basic things that we learned of finding a venue. I mean, we looked everywhere for a venue. It was like a nightmare to try to find a spot. And the Rose Room, you know, when we saw it, it wasn't even big enough, but we're like, okay, let's just try it here. And so all those lessons that I learned in Venice, I implemented them here. You know, one, staying super connected to both of you, and then launching it at our house, you know, and doing a couple interest nights in Roma and where you were, and it was so much fun.
It was so much fun.
All right, so you have an interest night, but how do you find out who's interested? Like, how do you get the word out, but who do you get the word out to?
Yeah. I mean, well, it's kind of crazy because when we were doing Venice in Santa Monica, which was a joke for a long time, so it was like Mosaic Venice, it doesn't matter, it's whatever.
It was real.
Then it was Mosaic Venice back in Santa Monica, back in Venice. But you had two leaders that were driving up from Tijuana every Wednesday night.
Yeah.
And then driving back to Tijuana. It was Anita and Otto.
Yes.
Now they're here. They're some of your leaders.
Yeah.
And they have a baby. Yeah. And they live around the corner from us. And from right here. And
they live upstairs from one of the coolest little restaurants. Yeah.
And it's interesting to kind of see how people have like progressed and have like followed you through, even just from back then, something that was just maybe an idea to then now it's a reality. Yeah. And now you've seen such great success because in the first year you grew to like a few thousand, and then it was, you know, one small interest night. So then like thousands of people, and speaking 4 times, 5 times every Sunday to hundreds of people, and thousands of people at conferences and pastors all over the South, like Latin America. And I know it's been really important for you to have a presence in Latin America and in Mexico City. But I don't think Mexico City was really like on I know we talked about it, but it wasn't like necessarily, no one from America was going to Mexico City 5 years ago when we first started talking about we should go to Mexico City.
Yeah, Mexico City is like super trendy now.
Yeah. We were talking about that last night.
It wasn't when we first came here.
There's so many, like, it's funny that like you grow up in LA, or even just us, you know, being half a Salvadorian, you're pretty light skinned. Then you come to Mexico and people are like everything. From the darkest, the dark, to the lightest of the light. Yeah. They're like whiter than my little sister.
Well, a lot of people think that Latin Americans all look the same.
And it's so mixed and so kind of really like eclectic, which is really cool.
And when I'm here in Mexico City, I'm one of the darker people. Sometimes I go around
but there's so many Americans right now. That was my point. Right? It's like you see people and you're like, oh my gosh, like there's so many American English speakers. So did that happen over COVID, or was it been like that for a little bit?
Yeah, I think it's just, I think it's both, you know, it's just, it did happen a little over COVID, and just, it's becoming a thing, and there's more designers, more influence coming to the city. But, you know, I want to say something that a lot of people don't realize, but, you know, you mentioned, you know, Mosaic Mexico is in the thousands, and it's not just because of one person, you know, it's not me. Yeah. I know your father is amazing. Yeah. You're amazing, but you did something that a lot of people don't know, and you've invested in Mexico. Thank you. Yeah. And, you know, there's actually certain people that made this happen that people don't even know their names. Like there's a girl named Vivi Serna. We call her our evangelist, but she was your friend.
It's crazy.
You know what I'm saying? Like she wasn't my friend, and she was your friend. And
then we went on live the midweek before we were flying here.
Yeah.
And that was it.
Yeah.
We went on Instagram Live, and like the moment we went on Instagram Live, it went to like top Instagram Live. She had like a ton of followers, hundreds of thousands at the time. Now like maybe 1 million or something.
Well, after she did Narcos, I'm sure she has a lot of
influence. Yeah,
it's crazy. But then she was kind of the first person, and she was like the person who just invited everyone.
Everybody.
She showed us around. She was like our tour guide. She had like her, and then she had her boyfriend who wasn't around at the time because he was playing in a different city. He was in Europe, but then he was connecting us to people, and it was just interesting how it just went person by relationship.
Yeah.
People opening doors, being so loud about
it's
it.
so beautiful to see that.
Yeah. You know, what strikes me is like if you're starting a company, you want to sell a product, you know, a lot of times people create a product and try to convince people they need it. And other people create a product that people actually need.
Yeah.
And if you're creating something that people actually need, you're not really starting from scratch because the need's already there.
Oh, wow.
And I think it's the same way the way you're describing what started in Venice Beach and what started here in Mexico City is that, yes, you're starting from scratch, but there was already something there. There was an itch that you came to scratch. So there was a need that was there. And there were people that were desperate and they were longing for a fresh, authentic expression of faith.
Yeah.
And then and then the highest commodity is actually people. You know, so then you go, there are people like Viviana and others, you know, who became like so critical because their greatest resource was their influence and their relationships and the trust people had in them. And they were willing to, in a sense, cash in that influence for the sake of connecting people to Jesus, connecting people to the church.
Yeah, and to a church like Mosaic.
Yeah,
where
so
the friends were safe.
It was so different than anything that was here at the time, too, which is crazy.
It is.
Yeah, and I know that was like a huge, I'm sure, culture shock for like a pretty like Catholic background city where anything that isn't Catholic is deemed a cult.
Yeah.
like the Catholic Church has a complete monopoly. On Mexico City and a lot of them in Latin America.
And it's funny you mentioned Mexico City because Mexico City and Guadalajara, like the center of Mexico is very, very Catholic.
Very Catholic.
But Mosaic resonates with Catholic.
Right. And what I think is really special about the way you've approached it is that you didn't come here against the Catholic Church. In fact, one of your good friends is a priest.
Yeah.
All right, tell us a little bit about that.
He actually came when the time you came to speak.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, he brought 15 friends.
So cool.
And,
so you have a priest who is an evangelist who brings people to Mosaic.
Yeah, and he's closer to me than any other pastor in the city. He's a really good friend of mine, and he comes all the time. We talk all the time, and awesome. You know, he's giving me updates about COVID and when the church can open. You know, updates I don't even know about. Awesome. You know, because one of the things we've learned from you, Pastor Erwin, is just how do we open in a very strategic and smart way without offending the people that don't know God. You know, that's such a concern for us.
Yeah, there's no need to make enemies. You know, and in fact, Jesus said, if they're not against you, they're for you. You know, and I think it's just a better approach toward life to see, in a sense, everyone on your side, whether they realize it or not. And so I'm going to try to extract principles here because both of you have really put a high value in identifying people who you're going to build the core around.
Yeah.
And anyone who's ever done anything from scratch, it doesn't matter if it's a church or a business, knows that a lot of times there are people that you hire or people that volunteer. You think they're going to be there with you for life, and then something goes wrong or something goes bad or they just move or something like that, and then you've lost the people you've built on. What are the things you look for in a leader? Like if someone's listening right now.
One thing you've always talked about is that, sorry, I cut you off a little bit, but you're going to ask multiple questions, so I'm going to hit the first one first.
Okay.
The one thing that you always talk about is that the people you start with are never the people you finish with. And it's always like, you should always treat the person who's been there the whole time as like a rare commodity and be so grateful that he made it or she made it or survived through all of the good and the bad. Yeah. But we talk about this, like there's always the conversation of, is that person still around or is this person still around? And it's always like, hey, no, maybe yes, maybe no.
Yeah.
But there's always new people coming through, especially being in major cities where it's so transient. It's so, like in LA, we talk about this all the time. Like so many people leave LA so quickly. During COVID, I feel like half the kids that were serving on teams or being a part of, you know, whether it was music, whether it's business, whether they're all back in the Midwest or in Texas or in the South. And then I do know that that's something that we talk about, or that you talk about, that we've always talked about, is like, be really grateful for people's season with you, whether it's business, whether it's church. And even now I'm like, I want as little drama as possible with people. and so I'm like, hey, if you want to go. I'm happy for you. I'll send you there. I'll send you wherever you want to go.
I think it's important to not be offended when someone doesn't stay with you as long as you thought they were going to stay with you.
Yeah.
And it's hard, right? Because you're going to be, you pour your life into people, you love them, you're committed to them, and then you feel like they just cut bait, or, you know, and it's easy to put life in the category of betrayal. They were betraying me. And the reality is that, one, you should be grateful when people give you a season in their life, but two, not everyone is supposed to stay with you the whole time. You know, it could be an important part of their journey, but you're not their whole journey, you know. And then just to celebrate, because God is going to bring new people. Yeah. And when someone shifts and does something else, it opens up an opportunity that maybe you would have never made available to anyone else. Wow. Right? Because you had some crazy people who moved to Mexico City. Some of them didn't even speak Spanish.
No.
Two of them. I forgot about it.
Jonathan and Miss.
And Pat.
Patricio,
So crazy.
And their wives, you know, and they were out here for a year, and they gave a year of their life. And then we just, one day they said, hey, it's just too hard to come back and forth because they just couldn't get a permanent visa. But it was okay. It was like, hey, man, the year you gave was so valuable. They created culture. They helped us push forward. And just to have a friend. Sometimes it's just someone to talk to cry to.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's more than even what they contributed to the city or to the church. It's what they contributed to your life and to your health as a human being.
Wow.
And I think sometimes people forget that you are human too.
It's so great.
And when you're starting something from scratch or when you're leading, you need to make sure you have 2 or 3 people who just have your back.
Wow, that's good.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, we talk about, like, you know, tough skin, soft hearts. But I do think a huge thing that I've come to learn, especially during COVID, is that, you know, if someone's with you for a year, 6 months to a year to 2 years, they're either going to be the greatest like recommendation for you, or they're going to be your worst reputation, right? Because people carry all of the good and all of the bad. And so I think one thing I've always realized is, like, okay, when I move on, let me focus on the good things that I've learned from the place that I just came, opposed to the bad things, and let the bad things figure themselves out, and it's not my problem. But I do think we do live in an era where young people only remember the bad. They only that place, I left that place because they're this.
Yeah.
And I'm like, were they that, or were you just not unable to forgive or have grace or to bring maturity to help build this space?
Yeah. I mean, because like going into detail, you were in a pretty bad situation in New York. And you went through a lot of negative experiences. And yet when you came back, you only spoke well of everyone there and the whole experience. No one would have ever known that you had a negative experience.
It was so negative. They were worried that I was talking bad.
Well, I know. They would talk to me and say, "Hey,
what have you heard?
Has Aaron said anything to you?" And then I go, "Yeah, he only just speaks so highly of you." And they go, "Yeah." And every few months, I get this like call or email or something.
I mean, I had to sit down with them, and I was like, "You're treating me like I'm ratting you out, but I was protected because I felt like God really protected me in that season from a lot of stuff." But I was catching the energy and the spirit of the heaviness, but I was kept aside from a lot of it. I felt really spared, you know? So I always just felt, and also, like, you know, with you, like I think growing up, I had watched so many people, you know, burn out or get exhausted or not be able to keep up at the pace in which you like live your life. And you move fast, and you move hard. And then you take breaks. That's the odd thing, is that I think sometimes we catch the wrong part of the season that someone's in. or they're like, okay, no, I see that you take time. You know how to take time and rest, but a lot of people don't see it. And so they don't know how to do it. Yeah. And then they end up just burning themselves out. And like one thing that I think that I learned, especially in New York and in LA, was like, you are your own worst enemy if you are burning out. If you're burning out, it's because you're not able to lead yourself and actually manage your time and your energy and your faithfulness. Because being faithful is going, hey, I am an awful person if I'm tired and in the room with you having to work. I know you don't want me there because I will kill half your church because I'm gonna be not nice to anyone. It's just knowing how to set yourself up for the win, I think, in situations, and rest is a part of that equation to being great, right?
Wow. So good. No, love that. All right, so your first crew that came with you, they were great. They supported you, then they left. So let's talk about after the aftershock, after the earthquake of losing your first team. And how did, I think one of the hardest things in the world is to trust new people. Yeah. Right? Yeah. And to identify the people that you're going to now build the next phase of the future with. Yeah. How did you do that?
Yeah, I think the people that left, one of their responsibilities was to build others. Mm-hmm. And so that's something that, you've passed on to us. I always make sure that people are building people. And so that's what we've created here. Because you don't want to do the same thing, whether you leave or you stay. You want to be doing the same thing forever for the rest of your life. Yeah. I remember I'm so emotional. For those of you that don't know me, I'm very emotional.
He is very emotional.
I'm Latino. I'm a quarter German. I don't know where the German's at, but I try to get the German straight.
The German is the repressed emotion.
And so, one of the things that I learned from you is that you moved me from so many teams, and I was like, why is he moving me? Am I not doing a good job? I did connections.
You get so sad.
I did connections. I did setup. I broke things. I fixed things. Yeah. I did so many things, but I didn't even know, looking back now, that you were actually preparing me.
Absolutely.
To be able to see. You never told me this, but I just caught it. That I can see each team and say, oh, I've been on that team, so I know how that works. Only team I've never been on is worship, because I can't sing at all. but I can see each team, and so part of what happened was that when Pat left and when Nimitz left, they had created such strong leaders. Yeah. And so some of them are still here, some of them are doing something else, but that's the value that Mosaic creates. Is, hey, I'm gonna build into you if you're building into others. And there's so many times where we put someone in leadership, they don't want to build into others.
Right. They just want it to be built around them.
Yes. And when you hired me, you said, I didn't hire you to be just a leader. I hired you to make leaders. Mm-hmm. If you don't make leaders, I will fire you. That's what you told me.
Hopefully I said that in a kinder, gentler way.
But, that's always stuck into my head. Is like, how do I create more people?
Yeah. How do you, build a leadership? And I think a huge part of that is to be able to see potential in people, which you do very, very well. And there's a light and a darkness to that. Sometimes the shadow of it is you see potential in a person and they never live up to that potential. Yeah. And in fact, you may want it more for them than they want it for themselves. Exactly. and that doesn't usually go well when you're dragging a person into leadership, kicking and screaming, right? And then there's another person who may never ask for it, but they are hoping someone sees them. Yeah. And one of the things that is, I think, unique to Latin culture is that oftentimes very gifted people who are Latin American will not push themselves to the front. Yeah. They'll stay a little bit passively in the back until you invite them to lead. So what do you do when you have a culture where people aren't like volunteering or pushing themselves to the front? Are there some things you've learned to be able to identify some unique talent?
Yeah, again, it's just, me being American and Mexican, Bolivian, German, but living out there, the advantage of being born in the States is being able to see that gold in somebody else. But you're right. There's sometimes I'm trying to pull gold. I'm trying to pull orange juice out of a grapefruit, and you're just not giving the orange juice back, And so I've learned that, I said, okay, maybe that's not the area for that person. But even the pace Mosaic works, I've asked you, is there a space for people that might work slower? Because we move so fast. And you said, yes, there is an area for those, for that person. We have to make space for those kind of people. So one of the things I do is just learning from my experience of working with you and being born in the States, is being able to push people. Someone once told me I had never believed in my country until I heard you believe in my country. He's like, how can you believe more in Mexico than me when I was born here? And so one of the first things I do is live it out, see if I can inspire with my life, and hopefully they get it and they catch it and they go with it. And then also just speaking into their life, hey, this is like something good you do. Don't be shy, don't be afraid. And even what you told us last night in dinner to my wife and I, Christina, you said, how do you break that tendency of a Latino that wants to just live with the basic potential, or underneath your potential.
Yeah, or the status quo.
There's a status quo, and you're just like, hey, one day you're going to own a house. One day you're going to do this, and calling us to more, And so that's what we try to do with our lives, call people to more and how we live.
Yeah, I think a huge thing is like, no matter what culture you are, because I do think there's a huge thing, right? Like being Latin, there's a huge, you're either really machismo or like, like high self-efficacy, like you're very confident,
over the top,
or you're, and it also is the opposite, right? It's like both at the same time, and you would never put yourself in the front in a spiritual space. So I think a lot of times, at some point you got to step into it, right? Especially young people. I'm like, okay, if you want this and you want to be all these things, then either do it or don't, and let's see how you work. Yeah. Because I'm like, we have had guys that get to, as high as you can get as leaders because they just are around. Yeah. Because they become your friends and they're willing to do the stuff in the in between times, and they step up and they don't say no. And it doesn't mean they always say yes, but they take on what they can, and they're honest and open about it. And I think there's a lot of fear sometimes, I think, especially around faith stuff, where it's like there's this kind of, dang, they really ringing the school bell, huh? Yeah. What is that?
It's gas.
Oh, it's gas?
Gas is here, but we don't need it.
We don't need it.
You want to just wait for a minute?
Yeah, we'll wait for a second, maybe. Yeah.
There we go. Can you pick up? Because you had a good
noise.
thought. You had a good thought.
Well, I don't know. What was it? We were talking about.
You're talking about
just stepping into, saying yes.
The contrast between machismo or just whole passivity.
Well, no, I think we've seen it in almost
people being around.
We've seen it in almost every one of our campuses, like whether it was whether it was in Hollywood. We both started in Hollywood to Venice to then to even South Pass or in Mexico City. It's like you have people who are very confident in their life, but the moment they come to the church, they're very passive. Yeah. People who are really, really confident in the church, but then when they go into their own life, they're like completely indecisive. Wow. And so it's like one thing that I think I've found, and I'm like, you have to just say, you've taught me this, like you have to say yes. When you say no, you're turning down a door that you may not want, but you're also turning down doors that may open because of the one thing that you didn't want to do will open up doors that you want to do. Yeah. Even that, and I'm thinking that, I'm like, I need to call back someone because they offered me something and I said no because I didn't want to do it. And then now I'm like, they're probably going to say no for me because I said no in that moment.
Yeah, let me tell you a secret.
Yes.
Courage is more powerful than talent.
And we can end the podcast now.
I am a coward. I'm a filthy coward.
This is what people don't actually commoditize well. Like they think talent is the commodity. They think talent is the value, and it's actually courage. Wow. Courage is really the rare commodity. When you have courage, your value increases tremendously. Wow. And what's interesting to me is that talent without courage is untapped potential. But courage without talent is actually an illusion because courage actually awakens talent. Wow. And so what's crazy is that you can actually have talent without courage, but you cannot have courage without talent. Wow. Because as you live more courageously, talent emerges. Wow. And people go, you're so talented, but you'll know, oh no, this is the same amount of talent I didn't have. And what you're seeing is my courage. Yeah. But that courage looks like talent because a lot of courage with a little bit of talent makes you extraordinary. Wow. And a lot of talent with a little bit of courage makes you a tragedy. Wow. And, you know.
I'm posting this on Instagram already.
And I see that in you. When you first came and talked to me about coming to Mexico City, I actually struggled with it. And some of it was, is Mexico City the right place? Yeah. And because I think in terms of like global strategy. Yeah. The second thing was, I just didn't want to lose you. I just loved having you in my life in LA. Great contribution at Mosaic, and you were very rare. But the third thing is, I wanted to protect you. Yeah. I knew you'd been through a lot of pain in your life. Yeah. I knew that you spent a lot of years in prison. Yeah. I knew that you always lived with that shadow over you, a sense of, wondering if you would ever achieve your potential, or a sense of sometimes of insignificance and insecurity. And I wanted to make sure you always succeeded. Yeah. And I felt like I could secure your success if I kept you close. Yeah. And I remember I called my brother and I said, I got this guy and he is really talented and he's really special. But he wants to go to Mexico City and he thinks we have a huge brand there. He keeps telling me, you're more influential in Latin America than you know. Mosaic's brand is bigger than you know. And I said, I don't know if he's reading it right. I don't know if he's reading it wrong. But I just don't want him to go and fail. And then my brother said, oh, so failure is just okay for you. Wow. I said, what do you mean? He goes, as far as I know, you've never been afraid to fail. Wow. As far as I know, your whole life has been defined by your willingness to fail. So it's good for you, but not for him.
So I have a question for you. Why do you protect other people from failing?
Yeah, it's a psychological deficiency. Yeah. I do. There's a part of me that does protect people from failing. And when my brother said it to me, I realized, if I really love Emerson and really value him, it seems counterintuitive. The greatest gift I can give you is to let you go fail greatly.
Wow. So good.
And so I called you right away. Yeah. I said, let's go. And then in fact, you said, what? And,
there was an earthquake.
There was an earthquake.
There was an earthquake.
That's right. And there was an earthquake. And I felt like that was the sign to me. That was a sign from God that you're supposed to be here. And I said, go now. There's an earthquake. People are in tragedy.
And I said, no, I don't want to go now. There's an earthquake.
And if you're going to risk, you got to risk big. If you're going to fail, you got to fail, with some drama. We moved to LA in the middle of the LA riots. Wow. And the city was on fire. And, that was, I think, a part of the unique moment that God called us into. And so when there was an earthquake here, I just knew. And it was in Condesa, really,
Roma,
right?
all this area.
Right, this whole area. And then you were apprehensive to go. And but see, once I knew, once it was clear in my mind and heart that this was the greatest gift I could give you. And because I didn't ever want to take something from you. I wanted to genuinely give you something. And then I could see you're apprehensive, like, no, bro, you gotta go. This is the moment. And you were gone pretty fast. It was and how was it? Just weeks?
No.
It was a couple months.
Oh, wait. From the moment you said go the first time, or the time?
Yeah. Right? When you said go, is when me and you came. So we actually started. Yeah. Because before that, you said
you went right away for the earthquakes without me
to go help.
Yeah.
And Pastor Kim gave us like 30,000
for global
to come help, and we helped build tents. Helped kids.
And one of the things I know about you, and this is one of the things I love about you, is that you're not bougie, bro. You're gritty. Like you like bougie things, you know.
Yeah.
Somebody wants to take you to a bougie restaurant, or you want to stay in a really,
We all like nice things.
you know, nice hotel, whatever. It's like great. Somebody should take them on a great vacation. But
Look,
you're
when you come from nothing, it's nice to have nice. It's nice to be around nice things sometimes.
but you're gritty, man. You'll get your hands dirty. You put your sweat into all the work. You are willing to be among the poor. You are willing to be among the sick. You are fearless in the way you serve people. In fact,
I want to talk about protecting people from failure. Is probably one of the worst things you can do to someone.
Such a good message.
So why do we handicap other people in our lives?
Yeah.
Because I remember when he left.
Yeah.
Venice was what I guess it would probably because you were there for like about 6 months.
Yeah.
7 months when you knew you were ready to go.
Yeah.
But we had kind of just started it.
Yeah.
And then you left and Venice was dying. Like we kept going Wednesday nights for a little bit and it was growing. And then we lost our venue and then it just died.
And then you had maybe a little over 100, 150 people.
We moved 4 venues. We'd gone to like over 300 and then we just...
Everything that could go wrong went wrong.
So from like Easter when we launched to that summer, it dropped into a third and we had moved and no one was coming. People with kids didn't want to come because they didn't know where we were ever going to be. I remember calling you, begging you to kill it.
And that's when he called me. He was, I think we should end Venice. I think, you know.
I was like, I remember saying, put me out of my misery.
Yeah. And I remember in that moment, I said to Aaron, well, there's another option.
Yeah.
And he said, what's that? And I said, why don't you just get to work and get everything you have.
And he said you should at least like grow the thing. Like try to grow the thing. Grow the thing.
Don't quit.
Like I am trying to grow the thing. No one wants to come.
And,
He's like, we'll speak every week. And if it dies, then it was your fault. And if it didn't, then you probably won't take the credit for it anyway.
And you got the phone call from the school.
The phone, I mean,
which years ago we had gone to try to
2 years before we had met with them and with a different staff person who wasn't even around anymore. And they were like, we'd love to have you, but there's already a little old like black church who'd been there for 40 years. Yeah. They paid like $100 in rent. And I was like, I'll quadruple times 10. I'll pay them to meet at a different time. Like, please, like just let us in. And they were like, no, they wouldn't let us. And then we were in Mexico and I got an email and it was like the principal. But I remember you were like, if it dies, it's your fault.
Just get to work. Just give it everything you got.
See, but I believe that phone call was a sign.
Yeah.
Because you grew it.
The church
grew.
Once we stopped worrying about growing, we started growing.
Yeah.
I mean, I got to go back and speak at it.
Yeah. And it
was packed.
Yeah.
Crazy.
But you already had it packed. And that's the thing. It's like sometimes it's those signs and those calls from God that are encouraging.
Yeah. But there was that little voice in your head telling you couldn't do it, you couldn't do it, you couldn't do it. And then when you guys just started speaking every week and giving yourself to it completely.
Yeah.
I just think that God, we keep wanting God to show up when we don't show up. You know?
And we can end it again.
You know? And it's like, if you want God to show up, then show up. Right? You know?
Yeah, it's kind of crazy, right? Because like we were working, we flew in Sunday night, and then we were shooting all day Monday, kind of, and then it's just Tuesday now. We're getting ready for this podcast on Friday. But we got back to the hotel after dinner, and I'm working with these guys, and I don't necessarily know both of their faith backgrounds, but I know one guy doesn't necessarily resonate with like faith. Though I think the longest time he's ever spent in church was in a meeting last week when we hung out, and we're working on a new business together, and they work incredibly fast. Wow. Like they already have an incredibly successful, they're young guys too, business. They're absolutely smashing, at least from what it looks like and what they're gracious enough to like kind of share insight on. And I was so impressed because it's 2 a.m. for me. I'm waiting for Austin. He's editing something. He also works very, very hard. He's working until 2 a.m. editing. And they're sending me business plans and data. And I'm going, there's no way that they have time to do the breakdowns, the cost analysis. And they know nothing about this business we're working on. None of us do. We all just like what we're doing. I'm not going to say what it is yet. And I was so amazed at like they've failed before. They've made lots of money before. I think they were telling us like they used to sell like fidget spinners, like this little thing. He's like, we've just always been hustlers. We just hustle. We just work. And I was like, just the things like they don't know any more than I do. I'm texting friends, they're Googling things, and I was so impressed by their unwillingness to fail. They're just gonna like, no, we're gonna do this. And then we're gonna figure out a way to be profitable. And they think in such a way I didn't think. And I'm like, man, if we could get a little bit of this guy's genius into the church side of things, you know what I mean? Like we would just be in a different ball game. And I'm like, it was definitely convicting for me because I was like, okay, sometimes I think I slow myself up because I want to slow the failure process.
Yeah. I think last week in Ballad Radio, I said that these guys at this 100 million mastermind, one of the guys said that money loves speed.
Yes. Right.
Well, let me just adjust that a little bit. Opportunity loves speed.
Wow.
And I think a lot of us feel like God never gives us opportunity. And it's just that we're just so slow that we miss all these endless opportunities. Wow. And, I just... Yeah. Even when we're here in Mexico City, an opportunity has opened up that, through your relationships. But
it told me something about myself, because you say this all the time. I'm like, I postured myself in this new company that I said yes to joining. And they offered it. We were brought together by another friend. They want me. I want them. But I postured myself like I'm going to fail. And they postured themselves like, there's no way. Like, and
we're
not going to fail. We're going to make this work.
But you're the one that has Jesus. You're the one that has faith. You should be the one saying, we're going to do this.
And I wonder, and there's some that's to it, right? Because I do think, and I'm not going to speak for him, but I'm going to hypothesize for him. Because I actually want to bring both of them on because they're like crypto geniuses. Yeah. They're just so in the culture with crypto and Reddit and everything. And I want to have a session where they just chat about it. But I do think because maybe he resonates a bit, like, I don't know if he resonates with God. From what I understand, he's an atheist. So I'm going, if he's, at least from what I see, he's going, there's no God to save me. So I have to save myself. And so if I'm not blaming my failure on God, and I think sometimes as Christians, as faith people, we blame our failures on God. God didn't want this to happen for me. And I'm like, no, I think God genuinely wants all good things to happen to you. Did you want it enough to go and get it yourself? Wow. And I woke up guilty this morning. I was like, no more sleep until I'm outworking the guy who genuinely believes. And I'm like, and I'm seeing him going, God put this guy who doesn't believe in God in my life to help bring me into a new season.
That's so good.
So much to unlock, I think.
Yeah, there is. And I just think that when you're talking about starting from scratch, that people who start from scratch, it is the fulfillment of opportunity loves speed. That you just go and you do it. Yeah. Because when you start from scratch, there's no proof you'll succeed. Yeah. When you start from scratch, you don't have the material that other people can see that justifies what you're doing. I mean, everyone who probably looked from the outside of what you were doing was certain you were going to fail. Yeah. And that's why it's so important to not listen to other people when they're evaluating God's calling on your life.
Yeah. Even early on, I mean, everything they told us was it's super hard.
Oh, everybody was telling us this was impossible.
Mexico City's hard.
Mosaic isn't going to work here.
It's
the culture.
Expensive. They actually told us to go somewhere else.
I know. Yeah, but
somebody told us to go to another.
Like, no, it's not going to work there.
But let me tell you that thing, and I know this isn't necessarily going to be popular to say. Okay. Whenever Americans go to Latin America, they always go to work in impoverished areas. And then they wonder why they don't change the landscape of the nation. Wow. Because if you don't reach that nation's thinkers, creators, leaders, then you're not going to change the future of the nation. And one of the things we said is if you're going to come here, you're going to suck it up. Yeah. Maybe your background isn't their background, and maybe they didn't go to federal prison. Yeah. And maybe, they're not all tatted up, and maybe they didn't, both of what you've been through after prison. Yeah. But you're going to go and you're going to stand in the palaces of kings. Wow. And you came to Condesa, Polanco, to Roma, to Juarez, because this is the epicenter of Mexico City's culture. Yeah. This is the creative epicenter. And people did not think that
it would work.
It would work.
Wow.
And one of the things I'm sharing, one of the things that I felt like God was saying to me this year, and I had to have reinforcement because when I was speaking at this event in Miami, right when I was walking up on stage, I always think like, what's my first opening line? Yeah. And my opening line was going to be, I always think it's amazing when I'm in a room I don't belong in. And right before I said that, it's like, I felt like I heard God say to me, I already told you belong in every room. Wow. And I felt like I had this reprimand in my soul in that moment. And so I had to like find a different first line because I was trying to be, funny and honest, and I didn't, in my mind, I didn't belong in that room. They all have companies that make $100 million and more. They all paid $100,000 to be there. I don't have that. And so I didn't, I'm like, I don't belong in this room. Yeah. And yet what I heard inside of my own like soul was, when are you going to finally believe you belong in every room? Yeah. And what has happened here is God has like put you in every room.
It's so cool.
And it's been amazing to watch that, and I want to give people some practical range. You started from zero, and within a year, what was the most people you had on like Sunday?
I think we hit 2,000. Like 500.
Yeah, because you're not allowed to say that because it sounds cocky unless someone asks you.
No,
And it was the time you came. You came and
you didn't need to throw that in there.
but it worked. Yeah. It's like
there were times where I came.
Yeah,
and there was people hanging from the ceilings. Like it was.
Yeah.
People were just people are so hungry for.
And what I want to say is that you came, but the number stayed.
Yeah.
So every time it would
just increase,
but it stayed.
Yeah, because I think the first time I came, we had 600, and we kind of hit that. We were so excited, and and the reason I wanted to highlight that is you went from 0 to 2,500 in a year, and a lot of people will look at it and go, "Oh, wow, that is a great reflection of your talent." I'm not saying it's not. I think it is, but it's also a great reflection of the hunger in the city, the need, the desperation people had to connect to God at a deeper level, connect to Jesus in an authentic and raw and beautiful way. And I think this is important. When you're starting something from scratch, your greatest motivation is to meet the need that people desperately have. And when you do anything, whether it's in the business world or whether it's in the realm of church life, when you're genuinely doing something to meet the needs of others, don't be surprised when the response is overwhelming. Because then you're actually doing the very thing that Jesus came to do. Yeah. And it's to me a pretty beautiful thing. Yeah. And your place, like when I came on Sunday, I was so shocked because there are a lot of senior adults. Yeah. I did not expect that. I thought there'd be like 2,500, kids under 28 or something like that. Because Mosaic Hollywood's pretty young, right? But Mosaic Mexico was multi-generational instantly.
You come to church, you bring every generation with you.
Everybody.
You bring your mom, your grandmom, your grand aunt.
You got little kids to like great grandma in the same crew coming to church.
Crazy. But one of the things I used was a strategy, and you taught us know your audience, know your audience, know your audience. So for me, I realized, okay, earlier in the morning, our 11 and 1 is older.
Yeah, that's not early in the morning, bro.
Okay.
Early in the morning in Mexico. That's mind-blowing. Like, what time do you start church? 11. Like, why? Because no one will come before
That's
11.
Latin American sunrise.
Yeah, but business people, they won't. 11 is like this on a Sunday. That's when you
Sunday's like it's family day, it's rest day. They stay home. Yeah. And so the earlier crowd was older, and so I started wearing a suit jacket. Yeah. I still had my jeans and stuff, but I was covering my tattoos. Yeah. And it's just a strategy of tattoos in Latin America, they're not accepted yet. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so I was going to retain them by what you taught us is know your audience. Because if you don't know your audience, then you're just you speaking. And that night, the layers would come off, so tats were out. We were having fun at 6 and 8, and it was a great time. And that's, I think, a lot of times we just want to push, like, oh, this is how I am. I'm all tatted up, just accept me. They know I got tattoos. Yeah. It's just a respect.
They're grateful that you hide them.
They're just grateful because they can bring grandma now, Grandma will accept me, And then once they know me, they're like, oh, we love you.
Yeah, yeah.
That's awesome.
I think this has been...
We've been going for 40 minutes.
So a great conversation.
Wow. Yeah. No, I think it's awesome. I think one of the favorite... we'll close it out, yeah? Do you want to close it out with anything?
Go ahead.
You usually are the pinch hitter. I'll just do all the details at the end.
I don't have anything else in my mind.
Okay. I got it.
Okay.
Well, one I think it's when we do... Oh, there's the lady with the truck. Mexico City has all these crazy things, like the people who bring gas, like literally gas. People who
get your trash.
She wants like your furniture.
Metals, she wants your furniture.
She wants your money. She wants your
mattresses.
Now, see, I consider this the entrepreneurial spirit of Latin America.
I mean, Latin America. I mean, we were at dinner last night, and it happens all the time. But there was a guy with a guitar.
Yeah.
He just puts down his Cash App thing. I'm like, bro, he's like, okay. One of our guys was like, we don't have cash on us. He goes, that's fine. Credit card swipe right here.
Wow.
He's like, what song do you want? Pick a song. He puts his iPad out. I'm like, it's like the entrepreneurship of the city here. It's just hilarious. It's amazing. But what I was gonna say is, one, I love doing these podcasts. We haven't done one like this from starting from scratch in a while. Mm-hmm. But I know that it's been good to be back. It's crazy that a year later in COVID, neither one of us have opened back up, but we're all doing renovations and getting things ready. And I feel like the excitement is building as the more we're building buildings, the more excited we've been about getting people back in them and connecting with people on a large scale. But I do really think that COVID has been one of the best things for us. One of the scariest things, because for so long in the beginning, we're like, will we exist? You never know. We were hopeful, we were faithful, we were confident that people still would appreciate it, but we're like, will this thing still be a thing a year later? And I think it's more relevant now than it was before it.
Yeah, stronger.
Right? Yeah. We adapted, and I think we're adapting. And I'm like looking in this room, and like behind the cameras, there's just literally like bags of sand and concrete, like ready to be made and poured. And there's bricks over there, and there's scaffolding here, and there's railings, and there's no AC, and it's hot, and sometimes it's cold, and there's no floor. And I'm like, this is going to be a place where thousands of people come someday, in the heart of Roma. And we get to, we're like, I feel like we're lucky. We're like super blessed to be able to do it in Hollywood and South Pass and all over the world in such cool places.
Yeah, and we just love being a part of this. And we love joining you in the great risks you and Christina have taken. And congrats on the twins.
Thank you.
That may be your greatest risk.
which we didn't even get into the miracle of that, but it's so cool. You have 3 boys now, a little army.
I remember when you came to me brokenhearted because doctors told you guys would never have kids.
Never have children. And
you said, I want kids more than anything in the world. And would you just pray that one day we would have at least one child? And then it was a miracle. When Christina got pregnant, you guys had Lincoln. And I remember when you were like so satisfied going, I can't believe it. They told me I'd never have a child, never have a son. And now I have a son, but you got greedy. You got greedy with God, and you realize, oh wow, if God would answer the prayer and give us one child when we were told we could never have a child, why couldn't He do that again? And then you came back with twins, and maybe that for me is my closing thought, is that what makes you special is that you get greedy with God. You realize when God answers a prayer that He's really willing to do a lot more, and you go back to the table. And you say, hey, Lord, I'm not asking for me, I'm asking for others. But it seems to me you have more available than I thought. And people like you, you don't just change your life. People like you change the lives of everyone who comes in contact with you.
Wow.
That's why we're honored to be your friend.
Thank you so much. And I'm gonna say something that breaks the rules to your podcast. Okay. But I learned 3 things in this lesson. Yeah. And I like to write 3 things. So one of the things I learned is, you honor your leaders. Mm-hmm. You wait for the right time. And sometimes it's hard. And the second thing that I heard you guys speak was take the risk. Take that risk. Don't wait and blame God, like you said, Aaron, for what you're not willing to do. And then the third thing is just the God factor. Because I've asked you, like, what does it take for this to happen? And you said, there's a special touch of God. And I know that the hand of God is on Aaron. And we've seen it with this podcast, how it's impacting the whole world. So it's an honor for me to be on here. I love you guys, and I miss you guys all the time. I hope to get to go to LA soon. Eat some In-N-Out and hang out with you guys.
Every time I ask you, like, what do you want from LA? Oreos. Just give me a ton of Oreos.
When I land in LA, you're like, you bring him straight here.
I know.
Because he wants to go to In-N-Out.
Bro, same.
But I want to go with him.
Bro, like, I'm like, where's Emerson? He's either Target or Walmart or an In-N-Out.
All right. Closing commercial.
Listen to the Bad Ready podcast. Thank you for listening so much. Thank you for every person who rates and reviews this podcast. Go to iTunes, rate this podcast, review it, give us 5 stars, give us some of your thoughts. Be positive. You can check this out on YouTube as well if you want to see the building that we are in, which is pretty exciting. And you can also listen to this on Spotify and it does in other places. But thank you for joining the Bad Ready podcast. This comes out. This is Friday when this is releasing. We will probably already be back in LA, but you'll get to see a snippet of what we are doing here in Ciudad de Mexico. Ooh, come on.
All right. Take care, guys.
Bye, guys.